We are back, and I think, the interview I wanted most with one of my former, I know Suri. What is your Korean name?
My Korean name is Hwang AeSuk.
Hwang AeSuk. I know you're as Suri, who is just, you were part of the teacher training program where I teach, and you were just an example of what every teacher can and should be. Just such a tenacious learner, always wanting to learn more, always thinking about how you can apply different things into practice, and as evidenced by you're one of the few teachers who've come to this program from our program. So anyway, firstly, thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you anyway.
Peggy was asking before about differences in Korean education and American education. As part of your program, you went to America and you saw some American schools. What are some of your perspectives on differences between American public education and Korean public education?
I had a good impression on the American public education because I thought that the students were leading their class as an autonomy. So I felt that they were free during the class. They could do something that they'd like to do during the class. And when they wanted to do something kind of against the class, they just raised their hands up. And they told everything they want to the teacher. So I got impressed by the action of raising of hands.
Was it your impression that American students are a little bit more active, whereas Korean students tend to be more passive?
Sure. And, I just attended the American public school just for about 2 weeks, and the whole content of the class was usually led by reading materials. It was very impressive. In Korean setting, usually teachers are leading the class, and usually teachers talks all the time. Students just listen to the teacher, but in American setting, students were reading the materials, and they could do some activities according to the reading. They sometimes drew some pictures, and it was very impressive.
Have you tried to do anything to make your students more active, or other things you've learned from the program or your time in America? Have you been able to, has it affected the way you teach?
Surely it affected me much, and it affected my Korean setting classroom. First of all, I tried to have my students more engaged in the class by communicating with them during the class. I used to usually just say to my students just to give lectures on some material, but I began to, ask them more than before. So my students and I could get more communication between each other.
I have another question for you, but I want to check with the chat room to see if there are any questions there. Okay, Peggy took a break maybe. You have always impressed me as a passionate learner, someone who continues to grow as a teacher, someone who raises her hand in class. And that's something that's, as a teacher, it's hard to encourage our students to do that. But as teachers anywhere, there's so much burnout. Teachers are so tired, they lose their passion, and you seem to have kept your passion. What's your secret? How do you maintain your passion for teaching?
I don't think I'm a good teacher anyway, but I always try to be a good teacher because I'd like to see my students being happy. So whenever I feel tired and I feel exhausted during the class, I try to see all the faces of my students. I try to see the eyes of my students. So I know that all of them are trying to study English harder, but they are also exhausted. So anyway, they are trying to get over their difficulties during the class, such as sleeping usually. But I know that they strive to get over that. So I see the eyes of my students to get over my tiredness and exhaustion.
So kind of personal connection is a very important ingredient. So you're here at this conference, and the theme is Drive, putting students in the driver's seat. Have you seen any interesting presentations so far? Is there something you're looking forward to? And what are your thoughts on how to give students more power for their own learning or control in their own learning?
Oh, actually, I got here late because I had to take some classes in the morning at my school. So this will be my first class here, for the 1:30 lecture.
So you should mention this is a Saturday, but you had to go to work and teach, which is not unusual for Korean teachers.
I am taking charge of the third graders at high school, so they have more additional classes on Saturday morning.
For people who don't know what that's like, can you describe the life of a third grade, which is a high school senior, is what North Americans would say, your last year of high school? What is their life like?
It's like a war. But I know that every country has its own situations. We Koreans just try to do our best to fit ourselves into this situation and to get better and to get ahead in the world. So I don't think this is the best way, but, it's just ordinary and we are just doing our best in our limit. So I'd like to also, get out of this limit as soon as possible. And every educational professionals are trying to do that, I'm sure.
What are some things that you've learned to appreciate about the Korean education system? With our program where you go to America, hopefully there's some things that are useful and beneficial, but also I think one of those is coming back saying, wow, Korea does some things really well. We have technology in the classroom much more than America, or we have textbooks for all the students, and sometimes they don't in America. What did you notice that made you appreciate Korean education? What is Korean education doing well?
Actually, I'm not sure about the American education because I don't know much about that. So I'm afraid to say about it. But the advantage in Korean education is most of all it's the people. I mean the relationship between teachers and students. The homeroom teachers are trying to take care of everything for the students at school. Until early in the morning till late at night. From early in the morning till late at night. So. We try to care about them. Actually, almost everything at school. So not only learning, but also other things, other activities, and other problems that they have during the school lives.
Well, Suri, thank you so much for taking time to speak with us. I don't want to make you miss your first presentation since you got here late, but I hope you enjoy the conference. And as always, it's an inspiration to talk to you.
Thank you for inviting poor, interviewee.
You're my hero. Thanks.
Thank you so much.